Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, one. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Do you want to try the lapel?
I must talk normally. Speak louder.
Yeah, it's a little bit less sensitive than the mic in front of your mouth. So you just speak a little bit louder. And if you can't hear it, you say testing.
Okay, so
So that they can adjust the
is
level.
someone listening now?
Yeah, what would like? I'm going to put them there, the handout.
But I'm going to be sitting.
If it's green, you talk.
Okay, and I must just keep
Stage
it.
for you. Sonia, you just press the button. When it's green, you can talk. But when
Okay,
it's
and
stage,
if we need to turn this off,
yeah, you're working.
So mine is not working.
not working.
Is mine working?
Working.
Can you all sit
But we're a little over halfway for the day, so we are doing well, doing strong. Amazing. Amazing. All right, I'm going to get us going and get us started. Please settle down at the back so we can continue with the program. This afternoon, we're shifting from the system around the problem to the evidence telling us where the problem is. And more importantly, what do we do with the evidence that tells us? Our fireside chat conversation is from data to action. What is the evidence telling us? Joining us, I would like to please welcome Palesa Ngabane, eCare's project lead at the Department of Basic Education, and Sonia Giza, Executive Director at Data Drive. Please join me as we welcome Palesa and Sonia up on stage.
Hi, everybody. Is this mic working? Okay, I'm not sure what Lisa and I did, but we don't get a moderator. So we're going to go rogue. So welcome everyone back from lunch. We have the very difficult task of keeping you awake. We're going to do our best. So Palesa and I today are going to be, for the next half an hour, we're going to be speaking to you about data. South Africa now has an incredibly rich data ecosystem, richer than we've ever had before, and probably richer than most countries actually have when it comes to early childhood development. We're going to be speaking a little bit about administrative data, around program quality data, and child outcomes data. And the conversation's really going to be broken into kind of three segments. The first segment is, what data do we now have and what do we know? The second segment is going to be a little peek into what's coming next on the data landscape. And then hopefully after that, we'll do some audience engagement and get you guys giving input on what makes data really actionable for you, which is, of course, why we collect data. So, yeah, I'll hand over to Palesa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. I don't like using the handheld mic. So my task is to talk about administrative data. So often when we think about administrative data, we think of it as data that we use for reporting. A lot of you who, if they are officials in the department, know the rush around quarterly reporting and all of that. But what we are trying to change the narrative around data and administrative data especially is, how can we use administrative data to give us insight into what is happening operationally on the ground level and as people are doing work. So the administrative system that we're using at the Department of Basic Education is the new eCare system. You've heard about it in the previous discussion. eCare stands for Early Childhood Administrative and Reporting System. And we've designed it in such a way that there isn't a separate data collection tool. The tool is meant to collect the data as work is happening on the ground. So as practitioners are applying for registration, for example, we're getting data into the system about applicants that are applying. As the social workers are starting to process that data, we get a sense of how are the applications progressing through the system. I imagine a lot of the practitioners in the room might have engaged with eCares already through the Banapili mass registration campaign. So the kind of data, the way that we use the data that we get from the application process, and it's been really helpful in the campaign, in the sense that it's helped us see where the programs are that need to apply, And it's also helped us to see more and more like who are the partners in the sector who can help us as the Department of Education to eat this big elephant that we have welcomed into the education department. So through the registration data, for example, we've been able to see through the bronze process where the bottlenecks, what districts are struggling, so we can start to target the support to those districts and be able to work with our partners to go and give targeted support to those districts. But we're also able to see from a capacity perspective in the department which provinces, which districts, understanding the frameworks that we have in place. Is there like training that needs to be done that we can then start to channel to the different provinces or districts as it would be. And we're also able to see from like a scale perspective, right? We're able to see in the different provinces what are the numbers that are coming through, and therefore what are the kinds of support that are needed to help to support the system. One of the main concerns that's been coming through the sector has been how are the ELPs moving from bronze to silver. So having the system and digitizing the framework that the social workers use to go and assess sites and getting that information back quickly is helping us as a department to see one, whether like all the bronze applicants are starting to make applications to do the silver process, and whether those that have started their applications are progressing through the system. So that helps us to answer two different types of questions. For those that are not yet applying, it means, is there an information gap maybe that is happening? Then do we need to mobilize a bit more, get more information out to those sectors? For those who have started applying and are getting stuck, we can start to problem solve. What are the kinds of issues that they're struggling with? Is it uploading of documents? Whatever it is, we're able to track where in the process they are so that we can bring along the right kind of support. But also importantly, where there are ELPs that are not making it from bronze to silver, from the assessment framework, we're also able to start seeing where are the areas that ELPs are failing on in the process, in the registration process, so that those ELPs can then be supported appropriately depending on what domains. So the framework has been divided into different domains, so we can see the types of things that they are struggling with. Is it policy-related type documents that are easily solvable? You can get documents out, you can train people on how to upload those documents and complete them. Or is it like more resource-intensive type of support? Perhaps it's the nutrition type of stuff. Perhaps it's program-related stuff that we can do that we can work with partners. And perhaps it's infrastructure type of support that is harder to do, resource-intensive, that is harder to solve for, but that we as a department can then galvanize either internal government resources or work with partners to start to support. So it's becoming, it gives us like intelligence into how the system is working, both from an operational perspective. Are we as productive as we could be? Are we reaching as many ELPs as we can? And also from like, what are the ELPs tripping over? What are the things that we can support them to be able to move through the different areas? And also our partners, how do we coordinate the support so that not all the partners are doing the same thing? We can appeal to the different strengths of the different partners, and we can make sure that where there is no support, we start to coordinate such that support reaches the different areas. That's a bit on the administrative side of things. At the moment, we can see where our ELPs are, the processes that they have to move through, and also we start to get a bigger picture of overall coverage around where our registered centers are, those that have just registered now as well as those that previously registered. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Vanessa. Okay, so that's an overview. Thank you. That's really a little bit of an introduction into... Thank you. So that's an introduction into our administrative data system, which, as Palesa said, was referred to earlier. It's called eCares. So what I'm going to move on to now is away from administrative data and really look at what we're learning around quality of early learning programs and child outcomes in South Africa. We now have tools and measurement systems that are being used by a wide range of actors across the ecosystem. And what that means is that I think someone in the earlier panel talked about something being unified. It's unified, it's comparable, and we can actually work together towards the same kind of outcome measures. So there's lots that we're learning, and I'm going to focus on 5 things. So I'm just going to go through 5 key points that I think are coming out as really clear, compelling, and important. So the first one, and this is not going to be new to you, but access really matters. So we know that children who don't have access to early learning programs come from distinctly vulnerable households. When we compare households of children who attend early learning programs and children who don't attend, we find higher rates of unemployment, poorer access to things like birth registration, social grants, lower income levels, greater poverty levels, and greater vulnerability across the board. So we're talking about 30% approximately of 3 to 5-year-old children who are living in these extremely vulnerable households who don't have access. And when we compare children from the same communities who have access and who don't have access, we find that the children who don't have access are falling far behind their comparable peers. They're falling on average about 6 months behind children who are often also already falling behind. So access really matters. When we talk about universal access, this is not an easy thing to achieve, but it's certainly a very important thing to focus on. The second thing that I want to talk to is the fact that quality also matters. Now, in the Banapele roadmap, we speak about universal access to quality early learning by 2030, and I think it's really important that that quality component is there. When we look at the gains that children make, so children who are enrolled in early learning programs, and we look at how much they gain developmentally from being part of those programs, we can see that the quality of the early learning program makes a big difference. Children who are in poor quality programs do not gain nearly as much as children who are in good quality programs. And that's really key. And it's not only the quality, it's the consistency. So imagine if you want to get really fit and you decide you're going to sign up to gym or to some running club. If you don't go often, or if you don't actually work out when you get there, you're not going to see the gains you want, right? And it's the same with early learning programs. If children aren't going consistently, and if they aren't getting access to a quality service in those programs, we're not going to see the gains. So that brings me to my third point, which is, what is quality? So there are lots of things that are important. You know, we speak about many things. We speak about registration, infrastructure, materials, and those things are important. But I think it's critical that we don't confuse registration status with quality programs. When we look at the data on quality and what kind of characteristics of early learning programs actually improve children's outcomes, what it comes down to, and I'm sure it's no surprise to people in this room, is the quality of the interaction between the practitioner and the child. Whether they're registered, whether they're qualified, whether they have a formal brick structure or a mud hut, it's the quality of that interaction between the practitioner and the child. And when we measure quality, when we looked at quality within early learning programs, we have this domain which is called teaching strategies. And teaching strategies captures elements of that. It looks at whether the practitioner is having conversations with the child, whether the practitioner is encouraging the child's natural curiosity, encouraging the child's independent learning. And we find that when practitioners do that, children do better. But what we also find is that training and qualifications are not putting enough attention on this. So if a practitioner is qualified, it doesn't mean that they're going to be better at teaching strategies. And so we really need to think about how we're training our practitioners. Qualifications are important. They recognize people's effort. They provide a career path and professionalization. But they don't solve the quality issue yet. And that's something that we really need to focus on. So that's the third point. The fourth point is that I want to reiterate what was said earlier in the presentations. Good learning outcomes don't only depend on good learning inputs. So our data shows us that there are many other things that contribute to children's positive outcomes or that hold children back. So for example, children's social and emotional functioning. Social and emotional functioning is a key predictor of outcomes. Children who are able to emotionally regulate do better when it comes to learning outcomes. Children's physical stunting. Edzani was speaking to this earlier. We had a whole panel on nutrition. Children who are stunted are on average 6 months behind their peers developmentally by the age of 4. That's the same as being not enrolled. That impact of stunting is huge on children's cognitive development. Children's home circumstances really matter. Children's social conditions in their home, whether they feel safe and are safe. So I think the point I'm trying to drive home is that as we galvanize around strengthening early learning, we mustn't leave these other things behind. We must recognize a whole child within the context in which they live. And finally, the fifth point that I wanted to make. We should simply be able to say it's every child's human right to a quality childhood, a healthy and happy early childhood. Unfortunately, that isn't always enough to motivate for investment. So what we've been doing as well is looking at longitudinal data to see whether we can build an argument that early investment is actually not just important for human rights, but it's important for human capital. And we know that there's data from other countries, and now for the first time, we're starting to actually develop evidence in South Africa. We've got data now that shows that how children perform as they come into grade R strongly predicts how they perform when they get to grade 2. So these are just 5 kind of key elements that I think are really important insights. And I'm going to turn now to Palesa to speak a little bit about what's next on the data agenda.
Thanks, Sanya. I think the universal access question is a big one, and the question then becomes, how do we know that we are reaching universal access? And as building blocks, we now know where the programs are, so now we need to bring the children into the administrative data as well. So we're going to be starting work that looks at population-based planning type tools. So knowing, to be able to say in an area, from a population perspective, we know that there should be so many children and from a universal access perspective, it gives us a denominator of how many children should be accessing services. We would know from the registration data that, so many children are accessing services, and we would be able to see where the gaps are in terms of provision of services. And then also we're starting to think about how do we bring the quality aspects to it. So there's ELOM data that can start to inform the system, but there's also, the department is also thinking about how do we monitor quality on a continual basis. So we are looking at quality. Another module that we'll be adding to eCares is a quality assurance and monitoring process that we are designing, and we'll build a module around that so that we know and are able to look back over time to say all of these investments that we are making in the system, are they actually having an impact on the children that we are meant to be providing services for? I know a big one that has been spoken about earlier is around digitizing the subsidy process. That's a big one that we are working on as well. How can we make it easier for ELPs to access the subsidy and for the system to be able to manage the money that is going out and making sure that it's used appropriately and benefiting the children. And as part of that, we're also working on integrating across other government systems. So as part of the subsidy work, we'll be integrating with SASSA, for example. We've divided the zones, the districts into priority zones. So where we're finding that, for example, that children in what we, in the most vulnerable zones are not able to access SASSA services, we would be able to get information to SASSA about that, we have children in priority zones. We know that because they've had to apply for subsidy funding. But when we check against your database, we see that they're not receiving grants. So SASSA could then intervene accordingly. We would also be wanting to connect with the Department of Home Affairs, obviously from a kind of verification perspective, but also to help with the big issue that we have as a full education system around learners who have late registrations. So the earlier we can catch the learners who have not yet been registered and can start solving that problem up front, the better it is across the whole education system. So help, and also children, as they get registered, they can also access other government services. So it's some of the things that we'll be working on in the long roadmap that is eCares. So those are the type of things, and eventually, aspiration is we would be able to also integrate with the Department of Health and make sure that children who are not getting their vaccinations and have nutrition programs or other kind of grants that are available for vulnerable children, that children are able to access those services, and there is a way that within the government we can integrate and share data to make sure that children's needs are covered as comprehensively as possible. Yeah, so those are some of the things that are coming up, and we are quite excited to be heading in that direction, because ultimately the unit of impact is the child, and so the sooner we can get the children into the more line of sight into where the children are, what services they're getting, other interventions we're putting in place having an impact, the sooner we can see going forward. And also we brought it into the education system, so also integrating with the overall education system, or children that are moving from ECD and into the schooling system, start to see the difference that early intervention has made in the investments that we're making now.
So that's a great segue into some of what's on the agenda in terms of child outcomes data. So just building on what Palesa was saying around data integration. So a couple of things that we're looking at is firstly to be able to link outcomes data with eCares data so that we can track over time what programs are actually have a measure of outcomes, as well as whether things like registration, improving subsidies, professionalization, whether we start to see relationships between that and outcome measures. And the other thing that we'll be looking at, which is super exciting, is tracking children through the education system. So taking the children, we've got data on 10,500 children that participated in the 2021 and 2024 rounds of the Thrive by 5 Index, and being able to see how these children perform as they move through the education system is going to allow us to answer so many interesting questions, not only around the impact of early learning interventions, but also what kinds of practices in the foundation phase actually help children to continue to develop well or undermine the investment that was made in the early years. We're going to be able to look at the relationship between early learning program quality and child outcomes and things like grade progression or school dropout a grade repetition, and that all is a real cost to government. And if we're able to show that investing early saves government money, then we can motivate for greater investment. So there's a bunch of work that's happening around data systems integration. The other thing that's obviously on the cards is the next round of the Thrive by 5 Index, which will be in Q4 next year. We've circulated a survey. I hope many of you have seen that, asking for inputs on what you'd like to see in that round of the index. We're going to be really deepening our work on what drives outcomes, but also, really importantly, we're going to be doing some really deep work in a number of wards across the country to understand the issue of access, supply and demand factors. You know, we have a lot of emphasis on addressing poor access by increasing supply, but what is it going to take to drive demand? And so we really want to do some deep work to understand that. And then finally, data is not an end in itself. It really is just a means to an end. And in order for data to be useful, it really needs to be actionable. It needs to be actioned. And so we're doing a lot of work to understand what does it take to actually action data. For each of you sitting in the room who has a data insight, who's been able to collect or has access to data, what does it take for you to actually act on that data? And we actually would like, just for a couple of minutes, I see we've got about 5 minutes left, would really like you to just chat to the person next to you and just answer this question, like, what, if you think about data that you've had, what's made it actionable? What is it about the way the data was shared with you, the type of data it was, the way it was communicated, or what you did with it that made it really actionable? So just spend a couple of minutes speaking to someone next to you or behind you, and then we're opening up a Mentimeter. And we'd really like you to share this. And just to say, this isn't just an academic exercise. We're going to draw on this information to actually inform how we share data with you moving forward. I hope you're only talking about this. That was too quick.
Some pent-up energy. There's some pent-up energy.
Please capture on the Mentimeter, guys. Please capture your thoughts on the Mentimeter. Yeah, the 3 minutes. I know. Guys, we only have five responses on here. Can we try to get that up to 50? Okay, guys, we've... welcome back. Okay, guys. Hello. Thank you so much. We've really got lots of engagement coming in, and I have to say it's really interesting and really useful. I just want to reflect back a couple of things that have come out which really resonate. The first is the issue of trust. It's really important that data feels and is trusted. That's really important. And that's a commitment that we need to make from administrative data to outcomes data. It needs to be trustable and trusted. It needs to be answering a question that people actually have. So not just giving more information on the same thing, but actually filling a gap, a data gap. It needs to be linked to a specific problem, people said, linked to a specific actionable problem. And I said we wanted to reach 50, and we're almost there.
Yeah, we're getting to 50.
Yeah, so keep them coming in. We have to wrap up, unfortunately, but what we'll do is, Kayan, if we can create a summary of these, and we commit to taking them on board, those of us in the data ecosystem, and also to sharing with you. Melissa.
Yeah, and I think that's an important one, Sonia, that's come up, as well as data being shared in ways that is understandable and also that is understandable and actionable. Yeah, so I think we need, as a system, to think about how do we do that. Like, we have lots of data, we are working with it. How do we make it available to the sector? And through the blueprint, some of that work is coming through on how do we start to share out and also get feedback loops into the system on what the data is telling us, what everybody else is doing, what we can all collaborate on to make our children's experiences of early learning better. Thank you, everyone, for chatting with us. Yes, we did 50.
Right on the minute, we hit that 50 mark. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for participating. Thank you so much to Sonia and to Palesa. Oh, sorry, don't worry about that. But I think that was incredibly insightful. Data is extremely valuable because it actually tells us where the gaps are. But to echo Sonia's point, data doesn't close the gap, action does. So, ladies and gentlemen, give them another massive round of applause. I also am super delighted and excited to share that we have honorable traditional leaders in the house from Limpopo. So please join me as special welcome. Sorry, I'm bouncing off a little bit. Please join me as we extend a special welcome to Hoshi Mugakula and Hoshihari Sekgopo. Woo! Thank you very much for joining us. It is our honor. Okay, I am very excited, but also extremely nervous, but super excited, because up next is our project launchpad. So please can I call up all our representatives who will be presenting. Can you all just be sitting right here in front? It's going to be super fast-paced. So what we're going to have now is we have 10 presenters. And this is actually, we're going to have to be super tight on this because we only had space for 7, but we left it open a little bit longer, and so we've got 10, which is fantastic. It's a great problem to have. Each presenter will have 5 minutes to share their project. This is a little bit of insights on their project. It's not a full-on presentation, so presenters, it's not a full-on conference-style presentation. It's meant to be fast-paced, quick, fast, tell us who you are, what you're doing, and what we're trying to achieve. So the purpose, again, of this, as said, is not to give us a full-on conference presentation, but rather to give us enough to understand what is the idea, what is the problem they're solving, and what can the ecosystem do to learn from it. So, as the audience, my only ask from you is that listen intently, and think to yourself, where could you partner, where could you fund, where could you adopt, and or where could you contribute? So, presenters, are we all ready? Alrighty. A reminder, they're going to come up. They've got 5 minutes. We're going to be super strict on time. They're going to speak, clap, on to the next one, right? This is literally going to be like we're doing Kauleza style rapid pitches. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please may I call up Teresa Michael, CEO of Africa Tikan Bambanani. Woo!
There we go. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. I am Teresa Michael from Africa Tikkun Bambanani. Africa Tikkun has been around for 30 years. It's an NGO, one of the biggest in Africa. However, the Bambanani program is still new, so we're quite young. In terms of ECD, our outreach is only 5 years old. So in 5 years, we have reached 811 ECD centers across all 9 provinces of South Africa. We have trained over 5,000 practitioners, reached over 76,000 children, all in 9 provinces. We could have reached 4 or 5 times the number of children, but for us, it's not about reaching hundreds of thousands of children. It's about dig deep, not wide. So we would much rather have a much smaller program where every single one of the 76,000 children have been directly impacted, not indirectly. Directly, where our mentor has visited every single one of those centers every week, and every single child is directly impacted by one or all of the components of our program. Our centers are all quintile 1 and 2. It's in the most remote, underprivileged parts of the country. We have a 4-pronged approach. It's our ECD internationally certified curriculum. It's our SACE accredited training modules, not only for principals, but also for the ECD practitioners. We have an online assessment center with data for more than 75,000 children who we assess from January to December. It's not a once-off assessment. It's about progress. It's about assessing a child where they're at and following them the entire year. And because of our Cradle to Career program, we then follow them into grade 1, 2, 3, and beyond, so we can see exactly how the foundation has assisted them in their later years. And we have our Bambalearn learning app, which is the cherry on top, which is a learning app, which is the curriculum in game form. And this learning app has had wonderful results where children have improved in all learning outcomes. Next slide. Our assessment scores, as you can see, our children from January to December on our program have improved more than 40% across the year. And this is all recorded on our online assessment center. Next slide. We have a 99.8 school readiness result. So by the end of the age 5 to 6, when we do our assessments, 99% of children are ready for school. And that's because of our dig deep, not wide approach. And then the last couple of slides, you'll just see how our Bambalearn app is working in action. It's an app that takes children on a learning adventure. You can see all the learning outcomes are covered, vocab, and you can just click through the slides. Vocab, problem solving, sorting, puzzles, hand-eye coordination, where every center, every ECD center receives 5 tablets. The children then work in groups where they rotate, and this is literally the curriculum in game form. We do not believe in overexposing children to technology, so it's 30 minutes at the most twice a week. The older children receive more time, where every single child then plays these games on the app, which then reinforces the curriculum. So, am I done in 5 minutes?
Amazing! Teresa has literally set the bar high. Keeping with the momentum, I'd like to call up Andrew Raj, CEO of the Reach Trust. The stage is yours, Andrew.
Afternoon, everyone. My name's Andrew, but these days I go by the name Tabo's dad. And that's because I started where's my first slide? There we go. We started the program Finding Tabo a few years ago. Who knows what the name Tabo means? Joy, exactly. So it's a Sotho name that means joy. And we were quite intentional with the choice of the name because we want children to find joy. And in particular, we want them to find the joy of learning. So we want, like all of you in this room, we want children to start formal schooling with the necessary brain development so that they can thrive and fulfill their academic potential. We worked with a group of experts, including psychologists, occupational therapists, and speech and language therapists, to develop a set of activities that are fun, yet very simple to implement. So I'm going to do a quick demo. You all need to put your 5-year-old hats on quickly, please. Next slide. Can everyone see this image? Okay. We're doing a quick activity today about circles. Okay, Tabo loves to play soccer. Can any of you spot a black and white soccer ball in the picture? Well done. Okay, and what shape is that soccer ball? It's a round. It's like a circle, isn't it? Let's all draw a big circle in the air with our arm. Okay, excellent. Well done. So now we're looking for a smaller circle, and this one's got numbers on it that we use to tell the time. Who can find that? Well done. It's a clock, isn't it? Now what I'd like you to do is draw a small clock on your neighbor's back. Okay. Now, okay, we all enjoyed that. Now what I'd like you to do is find a teeny tiny circle. This circle has a smiley face on it. Think about what you send on a WhatsApp message most of the time. Okay, so that in the cap. Well done to those of you with young eyes that could see it. Okay, next slide, please, Kai. So, and next slide again, please. We have a full curriculum for ECD practitioners that is structured in the form of daily activities, much like you can see this. And over the past few years, together with partner organizations, we've reached more than 16,000 ECD practitioners and about 400,000 children. But we all know that a lot of children in South Africa are not attending ECD centers. So we've been working on a caregiver model. If you can go to the next slide, Kaing. Next slide. Just to quickly point out that we've got 10 different pictures. Each one scaffolds on the previous one. And the activity guide has 4 weeks of activities for each picture. So you end up with a year's worth of content. But what we've done for caregivers is introduced a much lighter format of the program with far fewer words. And the key idea is that a low literacy adult can engage with this caregiver guide and do really high quality activities with the children in their care. It's currently at the printers. We should receive stock next week. We already have partnerships with Do More Foundation, Kululeka, Tree. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. But what we're doing here is inviting any of you that would like to partner to do some piloting specifically with caregivers. If you can just go to the next page. Next one, please. This has got my email address, so please reach out to me if you are keen to partner. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew. Nothing like an interactive pitch. I love that these pitches are going super fast, which is fantastic. They've set the bar high. Up next, I would love to call up Sipokazi Shabengwani, Director of Africa Capacity. The stage is yours. Woo!
Good afternoon, everyone. I go by Mampo Gwani. I am a director at Africa Capacity. We are an NGO that's working in the Eastern Cape, in the townships and the rural areas in the Eastern Cape. What we found as we go to ECDs, we find that there's lack of quality toys, educational toys. If you can show our toys, please. And yes, we can ask people to bring recycled material to make toys, but what if we could give them quality toys that could be able to help them to identify colors, to look at a plane and be able to take that plane to take them wherever they want to go into the world. We have a qualified carpenter who has experience in 20 years in the industry. He is passionate about making these toys and about the development in the Eastern Cape area. So our toys are able to engage children in the 5 play areas that we find in our creches. They are able to see colors. They're able to see shapes. They're able to discuss new literature, new language that they can get. They can talk about passengers on a train. They can talk about pilots. They can talk about engineers. You see, when you see them playing, it's not just they're playing. They are actually learning. One day, you don't know, they may become an engineer. They can become a pilot. They can become a cabin crew. They can become even that carpenter that is able to make more toys. So we've spoken to some NGOs that we worked with in Duncan Village especially, and have asked them, what has this toys made for them? What difference has come from having the toys? One shared actually that one of the children, as they're playing with these toys, one wants it to keep them from themselves, and then they have an opportunity there to teach the children about sharing, understanding that when we don't have one, we can all share in these toys. So what are we looking for as Africa Capacity? We're looking for funders to help us to produce more of these toys. When ATN, when he does these toys, he employs locals in order to manufacture the toys. So in order to employ the locals and to decrease the unemployment rate in the Eastern Cape, that is where we come in as well. We also need distributors because there are areas that we cannot get to. As I'm saying right now, we're only in the Eastern Cape. So if we have distributors like you who are sitting here, you'll be able to take the toys where we cannot go to. We want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Love it. Toys that help our students and young people dream. Thank you. Up next, I'd love to call up Nomsa Mutapuli from ECD, Youth Fund Manager at the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will be the party pooper without slides, so apologies for that. And I feel like my talk is going to almost respond to what Giles said earlier, and Sonia to some extent as well. So through some ongoing conversations with a colleague of mine from HCI Foundation, we actually asked ourselves a question: what becomes possible when we bring organizations together to solve a shared challenge? And we were inspired by a quote from systems thinker Donella Meadows. We can't control systems or figure them out, but we can dance with them. So in ECD, we're working within a very complex system, which we've all talked about today. Child outcomes are shaped by many factors: parents, nutrition, resources, funding, policy, relationships between different organizations. And no single actor can do this alone. So rather than funding organizations in isolation, we try to do something different. 19 ECD organizations came together, and a lot of them are in this room. Thank you. And they came together around a shared challenge, which was around the Thrive by 5 results that were presented last year. And together, they formed a national learning community which committed to learning together from a common evidence and testing solutions collectively. Another thing happened that was unexpected from that. 5 organizations from KZN decided to go beyond just this convening and this learning community and decided to form a KZN community of practice. So they decided that they felt the rhythm of the beat and decided to dance together in the province. And what's been really encouraging there is that these organizations that came together, did a little bit more than just, coming together within the last 8 months to do the Elon baseline assessments collectively, which all the 19 organizations did. But they also co-designed practical classroom tools, which were manufactured from recycled material. They trained their own facilitators across the different organizations and established a shared monitoring and evaluation framework. But beyond a toolkit that they built was trust, which was alluded to earlier as a very important factor. So they created a space where leaders support each other, where challenges are solved collectively, where one organization who has solved a challenge is actually then able to share it with others. And what emerged was not simply a project, it was a collaborative structure for learning, for adaptation and improvement. And why does it matter? Well, we've talked about the blueprint earlier, and in the blueprint it says that one of the goals is to increase the number of children that are developmentally on track, and also reduce the number of children that are falling far behind. And that is a mammoth task. Achieving these goals depends not only on knowing what works, but on getting more practitioners to consistently own and apply the practices that drive better outcomes. So the question we're exploring is simple. Can collaborations become a lever for change and scale quality? I think the answer to that is yes, and that's why we're in the room. But also, can small evidence-informed changes driven by organizations that understand what is happening in their various contexts add up to meaningful child improvements and outcomes? And how can this model that we've seen in KZN be replicated across different provinces rather than relying on a handful of motivated organizations to self-organize? We don't have all the answers yet. The end-line assessments are still coming, and we will see whether these changes have translated to measurable outcomes for children. But we do know something important, that when funders create the conditions for collaboration, organizations don't just participate. They build relationships. They share solutions. They create structures that no grant agreement can ever prescribe in advance. The opportunity before us is not simply to fund programs. It's to fund relationships, learning structures, and shared accountability that allows systems to evolve from within. Another systems thinker called Russell Eckhoff, is that my time? Okay. In closing, then.
Last sentence.
Last sentence. So I guess the ask and the call to action right now is that if you are a funder, think about how it might become possible for you to invest in relationships and these structures and communities of practice. If you're a researcher, how about you come alongside us and help us understand what is really driving the changes in this initiative that we're doing? And if you are an ECD organization, what opportunities exist for you to learn alongside others, solve challenges collectively, and contribute your experience to something bigger than any one organization can achieve? Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nomsa. The first to reach our song. Up next, please join me as we welcome Mam Ruby, the director of TREE.
From Nomsa's experience, Nyandiva, you can see that all animals are equal, but those are more equal than others. My name is Matsetweu Mutaung, a.k.a. Mama Ruby. Let's go. From an organization called Training and Resources in Early Education. This slide. A strategic pitch, a guide to quality ECD practice. A scalable approach to building a practitioner agency, adaptive judgment, and better early learning experience. The investment case, quality should not depend on which NGO enters. Hey, go back. On which NGO enters a center. quality should live within the practitioner. Now you can go. From standard to practice, the guide to quality ECD practice. We talk about quality in ECD. We have standards, frameworks, assessments, and quality indicators. But if I walked into an early learning program tomorrow with you and ask a practitioner or facilitator, show me what quality looks like. Sabotage. Would we all see the same thing? That is a gap 3's guide to quality ECD practice 6 to address. It takes the principles of quality ECD and translates them into practical, observable sabotage. Observable practice, I'll read from my phone, giving practitioners and those who support them a clearer understanding of what quality looks like, sounds like, and feels like in an early learning environment. The last slide. The invitation to all of you, including NOMSA. Let's close the quality gap together through continuous learning, supported practice, professional agency, quality practice that will lead to improved child outcomes. Mariki, you did not believe that I'll make 3 minutes. Why are you, Mariki? Thank you.
Thank you, Mom Ruby. We think a new record has been set in 3 minutes. So let's give another massive round of applause. I love the momentum. I love the excitement despite the sabotage and all. Up next, I would love to please call up Zandile Mpulo, who's the project director for Indluvukazi Back to School campaign.
Dumelang. Lekai. My name is Zandile Indluvukazi Mpulo from Middleburg, Mpumalanga, Witbank, Mpumalanga. I am here because of a partnership that I am with under Penrich implementing SmartStart in Gangala district. Through working in this program, we have seen a gap. What are we seeing? We are seeing passionate practitioners doing their absolute best, often with little. They cannot always afford printing, stationery, laminating posters, learning materials, but it's not only money. Sometimes practitioners don't know what should be on their walls, what materials they should use, how do they support different learners. So just quickly, close one ear, close one eye. Yes, one eye, one ear. Every child needs access. And there's one particular child we are often leaving behind, a child with disability or living with disability. A child who cannot hear but still needs language. A child who cannot speak but still needs communication. A child with low vision but still needs to learn. A child with communication difficulties but still needs to understand what is happening in their classroom. We need to remove or become that barrier. Our solution. We want to do an inclusive print-rich classroom initiative. We are developing practical classroom resources pack with ECD practitioners with inclusion specialists, designed for real community ECD environments. The communities that are on the ground that we're talking about here, which are from disadvantaged areas. That's where we want to start. We are not just looking for posters. We are investing in access, inclusion, and school readiness. They must not only experience a beautiful classroom or a safe learning classroom when they get to the big school, but they must start experiencing it at an ECD level. Materials we can use every day, that's what we're looking for, that they can be able to recreate, materials that can be adapted, shared across all classrooms by all teachers involved. What we have learned, we already work with ECD practitioners. We understand many of the challenges, not all, but many of the challenges. We have seen the gap. We know the resources need to be practical and affordable. We know inclusion is an afterthought most of the time. What we are asking as an organization, we are asking for collaboration. Who do we need? We need inclusion specialists who will help us make this dream a reality. We are asking for organizations to help us test and pilot this initiative. We are looking for funders and corporates that can champion us to making this dream a reality. We are looking for printers, businesses that can help us design and partner with us. We are looking for government and system partners to help us connect the model to the wider ECD ecosystem that we've been talking about in this room. I said, please just close your eye and your ear, and this was for a reason. I wanted you to experience that for a few minutes, that a child, an entire day, a classroom with very little meaningful print around them, very few visual learning tools, and that child also has a disability. That is the gap we want to close. We want every child to go to a class and come back home looking forward to a new day. So if you are here and you are interested into working with us, please do find me sitting there. My name is Zandile Ndlovukazi, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Zandile. Thank you. To the audience, I hope you're listening to the point of connection and still pondering where can you contribute as you listen to these pitches. Thank you so much, Zandile. Up next, I would like to call up Dr. Jessica Renarsson, Innovation and Advocacy Manager at Do More Foundation.
Thank you. I could not resist the opportunity to share with you what happened when we took an idea and combined it with some innovation. Two of my favorite topics, and my team at head office are basically betting that I can't make the time limit. So this is all on you to tell them when you see them. So very exciting to share a little bit about how we began with this idea of taking nutrition messages and making them fun. I started that conversation this morning, and so many moments today we've been referencing nutrition. Yes, it's super important, and access, food security, very important. When that mother walks into the shop, what does she buy? And kind of giving that narrative and that agency, that power back to the mother to say, you have the decision-making power to support your child's growth is part of that. It then became so much more when we combined it with parent support. Another field, super important. You want parents to feel that they can gather, they can be supported through dialogue, parenting support, believe it or not, is happening at ECD centers. And so what's so exciting about that finding for us was that we can champion parent support collectives, these hubs that we're talking about, and we realized that the practitioners can be champions of the Road to Health book, again, connecting those dots to the Department of Health. Of course, I would be amiss to not play. So please turn to your partner and pull the craziest face you can, because you've all been sitting for a while. Thank you. I was willing to spend at least 10 seconds on this point. Shout out to Kyan. We then took it a step further, and this is the point of my presentation, is that we combined it with some innovation. So we, whether you know too much about Do More or not, we're scattered over South Africa in different provinces. We were getting data from everywhere. Some of our partners in the room, Kululeka, Penreach, Siyakolwa also here, have partnered with us over time. as we started to grow this program, the data needed to be managed, and so we decided to flip the script and use WhatsApp as a data collection method because it's trusted. The word trust has come up so much today. Can I have a little thank you? And WhatsApp is trusted because practitioners know how to use it. They don't need to be experts. And low data. Yes, we love that. Could be data free. Someone's in the room that can do something about that. Anyway, the point though, we realized very quickly that we were getting insights that we'd never gained before around breastfeeding, hand washing happening in ECD centers, clinic visits for ARVs with parents from the center. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And so what's so exciting is that we started to see these practitioners, here we go, this is the slide, sending us pictures that we could observably see the changes in these centers. Fruit and veg popping up everywhere. Playful opportunities to build plates. Fathers, come on. We started to see an increase in fathers in the room, and the practitioners telling us those things, like, did you know I had 5 fathers today? I mean, that's amazing. Breastfeeding happening at ECD centers. And growth monitoring. Here it is, to the stunting point. These practitioners don't need to be experts, and we're not expecting them to be health workers, but they felt confident enough to say, let's put you against a height chart and check. I think it's a good start. So very, very exciting for us to see all of this coming through WhatsApp, which Google Forms never gave us that opportunity. I think the trust was never there, perhaps. And that was really exciting for us, and to start seeing the themes in the photos as well as in the narrative gave us a lot of power. Next slide. Awesome. So we partnered with an amazing developer who offered to build us a chatbot builder for free. So that's kind of cool. We're offering this to you. This is the offer of the day, is that this incredible offer was made to us to say, would you like to use WhatsApp? It's kind of like a Google form builder, but for WhatsApp. And we've been piloting this over the last year. And it looks a bit like what's on your screen, but you can make it come alive by using the language that's relevant for your people, for your communities, or your programs. And you can create templates, all kinds of forms. The point, though, if you scan the QR code, you can experience it. So I hope this is not a one-sided show. You can interact with our WhatsApp chatbot. I made this form. My team jokes. They make me a folder called Jess's Test Forms because I'm forever testing a form. We'll go back. Come on, Kyan, hook us up. Thank you. And so, I know that the time is gone. But anyway, have fun on WhatsApp. And it is a free offer, so you can just select, yes, I'd like the free offer. And we will connect you with the developers who can onboard you onto this platform. So we're really excited about that as an offer. Last offer is our content is open source. So if you're interested in our nutrition content, I'd love to chat. So find me. Cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Jessica Renassen. Up next, I'd love to call up Nicola Vermeulen, lead trainer, Fundani Uguvuga, NPC Mobile. Please go up. But I also would like to announce Njabulo Mashia. You're also scheduled to speak, but if you are in the house, please make your way to the front. Not here in front? No. Nicola, the stage is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, give her a massive round of applause.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicola Vermeulen, and I had the privilege to work with Little Seeds for 9.5 wonderful years. But unfortunately, my age counted on me, and I had to retire. And then I decided, no, I'm too young. I can't retire. So that's why I decided to get my own company. And you know what? I started my company, so it's brand new. It's about a month old. And our name is Fundani Ukufuna, and that means we learn together and we harvest in abundance. And I've got wonderful partners that are also very enthusiastic and who share my passion for education and making a difference in the lives of children. Now, Fundani Ukufuna believes that every child deserves a strong start in life, regardless of where they live or their circumstances. Our focus is on improving the education and development of the children from birth to 10 years, while also equipped youth and adults with skills that improve their quality of life. We work mainly in rural, informal, and low-income communities where access to quality education support is often limited. Now, a few focus areas, we've got 3. First of all, is to strengthen the ECD. We build the knowledge, skills, and practice of ECD practitioners, teachers, child carers, and volunteers. We focus on the importance of the foundation years, helping children develop the skills they need across the educational, learning, and development areas. Now, we all know why it is important, because the early years lay the foundation for further learning. Quality care, stimulation, and learning experience help children become better prepared for school and for life. The second one is supporting educators and caregivers. We provide practice ECD training, including SmartStart, because I'm now an independent SmartStart trainer. And we also educational support to address learning gaps, mentoring and guiding for educators and carers, and practical ideas to create meaningful learning experience for children. And the third focus point is the strengthening family and communities. We all know education doesn't happen in isolation. We also develop the programs to help the parents and the educators. Life skills, positive parenting, personal and economic development, positive citizenship, leadership, and project management. By strengthening the adults around children, we create a stronger and more supportive environment for children to learn and grow. Our experience and reach. Our directors have extensive experience in developing new projects, strengthening existing projects, and adapting programs to communities' needs and available funding. We provide training and support nationally. We currently have access to communities across the Eastern, Southern, Western, and the Northern Cape. Many of these communities are ready and waiting for funding to establish and strengthen ECD, literacy, reading, and daycare groups, as well as receiving training in SmartStart and other foundation phase programs. There are communities that want to become active participants in improving education, not only for their own children, but also for the children of their neighbors and friends. Fundani Ukufuna is a place of hope and mercy. One example is the place of mercy of Valencia. Thank you, I'm just going to finish. A rural, informal community nearby Addo in the Eastern Cape. For the past 11 years, our lead trainer gave educational workshop to parents of Valencia. Then, we all know, as we invest in
Let's give a massive round of applause to Nicola. Nicola has reminded us that, you know what, purpose does not retire, and you cannot shut a woman down. So I love that. Yes. And then, up next, I'd love to call up Jacques Pretorius, who is the Executive Director of the Anglican Board of Education for South Africa. The stage is yours.
I just need to check that you're all awake and take a big risk. God is good. God is good. Whoa. I thought that was safe because on one of our slides earlier we had God's work. It's my privilege to speak to you today about meaningful beginnings, activating faith communities for Banapele. The Banapele blueprint asks a profound question. How do we ensure that every child can thrive by 5? It also challenges us to stop thinking in terms of isolated projects and to start building networks that can work at scale. As for the response of the Anglican Board of Education for Southern Africa, known as ABISA, we believe that the invitation may already be hiding in plain sight. Across Southern Africa, there are hundreds, in our case, of Anglican churches, chapelries, mission stations, and parish facilities embedded already in communities. They are trusted local institutions. They are places where people gather, form relationships, and organize support. Yet many of these assets remain underutilized during the week. Given that scale moves at the speed of trust, quote, we have been helped to ask a simple question. What if exploring and understanding this trust enables these community assets to become pathways to school readiness, hope, and opportunity, scaffolded by a shared narrative? Through our Meaningful Beginnings initiative, ABISA seeks to work with the Department of Basic Education's Banapele project, SmartStart, Cotlands, SACOF, and Rotary Clubs, and other partners to identify these and other community assets and eventually activate them for early learning. Our pilots have taught us something very important. What communities often need first is not a new program. They need a trusted local network and a welcoming local space. So ABISA, for those of you who know the Banapele actions, sits at the intersection of actions 15 and 20. Action 15 calls for local Banapele community hubs that mobilize families, grassroots leaders, and local champions around early learning as a shared community responsibility. And Action 20 calls for the repurposing of underused community buildings and places of worship into joyful, safe, and accessible early learning environments. These are not separate challenges for us. They are the same opportunity. The Anglican Church already has a distributed network of local leaders, congregations, Mothers Union, Anglican Women's Fellowship groups, youth structures, parish facilities, and community relationships. Our contribution is to place these assets at the service of the Banapele vision. Imagine parish halls becoming registered early learning centers. Imagine church campuses hosting playgroups and family learning programs. Imagine local congregations becoming Banapele community hubs that connect families, ECD practitioners, government services, and community partners around the shared responsibility of helping children thrive. We're not offering a parallel system. We are offering an existing network of trusted relationships, local infrastructure, and community leadership that can help Banapele move faster, deeper, and further into communities that remain unserved. This is exactly the kind of mobilization and network that the blueprint calls for. So today, our invitation is simple. We are looking for collaboration partners who will first strengthen our resilience to stay in love with the problem rather than love our solution. Then, with this disposition of humble listening, to identify, to map, to assess, and activate faith-based community assets for early learning in a manner which evidences our learning. Together, let us ensure that every child in every community has a meaningful beginning.
That was literally on the minute. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a massive round of applause to our presenters. Honestly, to our presenters, thank you so much for being brave enough to share your projects and initiatives. And to the audience, we've heard an incredible amount of remarkable, wide range of ideas. So honestly, I really hope that you were paying attention and pondering on what to do and what comes next and how you can contribute. Of course, now the most important part is to follow up, right? Who do you need to speak to? What could you adapt? And where could you collaborate? So, if any of these pictures caught your attention, please don't wait until tomorrow or the next day to try Google them. After these sessions, go up to them, go find out, and speak to that person during the networking session and find out how you can connect and work together and collaborate. What a day. We are over halfway, but we are soldiering through. So everybody, take a deep breath and breathe. Yeah, I suppose deep breath in and deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Okay, so we've spent the day talking about basically almost every single ingredient that is needed to close the ECD access gap. We've talked about children and their families. We've spoken about nutrition. We've spoken about people, we've gone into money, we've spoken about data, about evidence, and we've just had these presentations about the various projects that can take place. But running through every single one of these conversations that we've had, there's been one key ingredient, one key word, and that is partnerships. So today's conversation isn't really about whether partnerships matter, because the reality is we know that they do. The real questions are, what can each actor unlock for somebody else? What does it cost? And what do you need from others? So ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome onto stage our panelists, Dadisai Taderera from SmartStart, together with Roisin Singh, Helen Ngoba, Khosi Mukukula, Pumelele Taubatla, and Tracy Fortune. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our panelists on stage.
What a day. And we got the graveyard shift, but I hope that the insights are going to keep us on fire and keep the conversation going. So I think the whole day today, key to what has been a part of the thread that has run through all the discussions has been around partnerships. And I think that this panel this afternoon is really going to help us to bring that conversation alive. I think we can all agree that no one disputes the idea that partnerships are going to be key to unlocking universal access. I think that is settled. But I think what we want to explore with this panel is to understand where some of those partnerships and new frameworks of partnering are starting to unlock where some of the challenges lie and where the opportunities for deepening our partnerships lie. In front of you is a wide, people from across the ecosystem, and that was really the intention. I've got Roisin Singh from the Banapile Secretariat, Hosi Humphrey Makakula, a traditional leader and a huge supporter of SmartStart in Limpopo, Helen Koba from the Child Services with the City of Johannesburg, and Mayor Pumelele Klobata, who's the Provincial ECD Director in Gauteng, and Tracy Fortune from Elru. So please give them a round of applause. So I'm going to give all of you a few minutes, maybe a minute or two, to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you sit within the ECD ecosystem, to give us some context and texture into where your contribution and where you're leveraging your agency to help solve universal access through partnerships. Maybe I'll start on the end with Roisin, and we'll just make our way all the way to Tracy.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As Daddy said, it is actually the graveyard hour, so I almost feel like I should get you to stand up and do that shoulders, knees thing again, because we all need to stay awake now. But I know what's in your head. You're thinking about the networking later, right? Because after this, that's what happens. Anyway, my name is Roisin Singh, as she said. I'm very new to the space of early learning. I was in the presidency for the last 7 or 8 years, and I've now joined Banapili this year. But when I was in the presidency, one of the things that I steered was to move the function of early childhood development from social development to basic education. And in moving that function, I didn't do it alone, but it was the vision of our President Ramaphosa that must happen. And in moving it, what we were saying is that the focus has to be on learning, because ECD is not just a social development issue or just a health issue, but it is also about learning, and we need to situate it in the right space. We then worked on how can government do more, because as you heard earlier, this is more privately delivered, but it is a public good. And therefore, the idea of the government subsidy came in, and we are happy to report that since last year, there has been funding made available for a subsidy, even if we don't think it's enough, Nomsa. But, you know, it's there, and at least it has been made available. So those were some of the actions that I was involved in. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Ihlekani? Minjani? Ephukile. Reason why maybe I'm speaking this language, it's because one of the speakers here, they were talking about some pamphlets that we need to change them into our languages. I was introduced as one of the big fan of SmartStart in Limpopo province. Of course, yes, I'm a big fan. And then that made me to self-appoint me as an ambassador for SmartStart in Limpopo. I know what is expected from me, and I'm happy with this conversation that we're going to have for the couple of minutes, and then we'll learn from each other and how best can we take them to the other province. Because the main reason why we're here is close the gap. I've been listening to all the speakers. The things that we're going to bring from Limpopo to some of you is very new, and you don't know how traditional leaders and ECD connects. This is the most important pillar that most of us in our practice we have been missing. I also had the Anglican Board of Education, something, saying a lot of things, and which is very positive. But I just want to ask you a question. I know it's all about introduction. There's a very well-known proverb which says, it takes a village to raise a child. Who are we sitting here. We are a village. Why traditional leaders are not a village? Or it's because all these things that you are doing, it's happening in the village, in the jurisdiction of traditional leaders. How many are you not coming from the village here? None. So it means we need traditional leaders to make sure that whatever things that you are doing, we support it from the ground. Is the reason why we are here. Reason maybe why I became a fan of SmartStart. It happened way back when I was doing my law degree. There was a very well celebrated case which we were studying in the model of social security, where a child was born out of two parents coming from different nationals. The government of South Africa didn't want to support the child because the father was not a South African, but the mother was a South African. So that made me realize that something needs to be corrected. And that gap of separating the nationals need to be closed. Hence, we are here. So we still have a long way to talk about. We are happy with the work that we are doing. I will explain it more when it comes to the area where I'm playing my part. I'm happy that through the network that I'm having in the position of traditional leadership, I've managed to get almost everyone that is needed to play a part in their role in closing the gap and also supporting the ECDs. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helen Gopa. I work for the city of Johannesburg within the social development department, and there's a small unit called Children Services Unit. That's where I'm placed, and my focus is on ECD compliance. And I just want to give a little bit about myself. How did I land in the city of Johannesburg? I first started as a practitioner. I was also in a playroom setup, developing children. And the city outsourced all its ECD centers. And we were capacitated now to work in the field as community developers. And doing development, part of it was ensuring capacity building of ECD practitioners within the various areas of the region where I was based, which is Region G in the city of Johannesburg. And from then, I was then requested to join the ECD compliance team because that was the biggest gap within the city of Johannesburg. I was then moved from Region G. I went and worked in the central office together now with land use department, environmental health, EMS, fire safety, and building control. This is where I am now. Thank you.
A very good afternoon. My name, as indicated, is Phumelele Tlobatla. I am the ECD Director in Gauteng Department of Education. And so when I came back to Gauteng Department of Education, because I was in Gauteng Department of Education, but elsewhere, then I left. And when I came back, I was appointed as Director for ECD, but at the time, ECD was just limited, within the Department of Education, was limited only to grade R in public schools. And we were cruising nicely because it was a space that we were used to, its schools and all of that, until the transfer of ECD functions from social development to education at a provincial level after the proclamation at national level, and I had to lead that process right up to its a final, a logical conclusion. And because it was just more of administrative thing, looking at what the law says, the legislation and whatnot. But when we now received the function officially, then we started running like headless chicken. What is happening here. Where are we? When did we arrive here? How did we arrive here? But it also meant, what do we do as quickly as possible? Because we had to lead. We told we are the leading department. And if you have to lead, you have to know what you're leading. And it means you have to learn and learn very fast. And, but it was not just about learning, but also to embrace what is the sector all about and and start understanding the challenges and embrace those and be able to, come up with, ways and means of how we deal with the sector. But throughout up to this far, we have learned and we are still learning, and the partnership thing was the biggest learning that we have had, because it was a whole mindset shift that had to make us to relearn how we manage spaces, different spaces. Thank you.
Thanks, Dadisai. So I'll just come through a strategic planning process, and we've had to answer that exact question: is what is our role? And I'd like to contextualize that role within the framework almost of what Dr. Harrison put forward this morning as the nucleus around the child, or the core elements. And perhaps think of those core elements as the ecosystem that we need to build around the child. And how do we fit in within that context? And within that framework, we can almost see ourselves as part of the delivery system that's very closely connected to the child. In other aspects, though, we're not the main actor, we're not even the supporting, don't even have the supporting role. We're actually just extras in that system. And so understanding that framework and where we fit in has been so fundamental to us, because when we ask the ecosystem question, one of the biggest fundamental questions that we've asked is, how do we impact that ecosystem, both from a systems level, but also from a balance sheet level? And so that is the framework that we use for our strategy, but also a framework through which we would like to view partnerships and how we begin to engage with partnerships, and will definitely require a fundamental reframing and paradigm shift in relation to partnerships.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to move to Roisin and say, you outlined how, through your role, even before you joined Banaphile, you are already working and orchestrating for the sector. Can you tell us about how partnerships, think about an example of how partnerships have unlocked something significant that has opened up access for many, even though some of those actions may have been happening in the background, before they came to light. So I want you to tell us about, what is happening behind the scenes and some of the things you are seeing that have been important in terms of unlocking opportunities for new access from where you sit.
Thank you. So, when you sit in national government, you just make policies, you make proclamations, you just kind of put things out there. You see your role as you are enabling, right? It's enabling conditions. And you don't think very much about the people who have to implement on the ground, or about the people who you actually doing this for, which at the end is the child, right? So all very well, the function moved to DBE. But then what DBE did very successfully and brought people like myself in to be part of DBE was to look at how are we going to then deliver this ambitious task of ensuring universal access to early learning for all children in the country, right? And that is why I'm excited today, because the Banaphile blueprint, my example was going to be what Jacques talked about, by the way. He stole my thunder, okay? So the whole notion of the Banaphile blueprint is that it is a call for collective action, but not only a call, it's a roadmap with 23 very, very clear actions on what must be done to reach all children. And we're also talking, by the way, to my friend who was up here earlier, even children living with disabilities, to ensure that they are all brought into early learning, okay? So the blueprint was something that was done collaboratively. I won't say in partnership, because sometimes I think we overuse the word partnership, and maybe it starts losing its meaning. But collaboration and co-creating is the word I want to use. So the blueprint was co-created, and as I said, it's about not leaving any child behind. Leave no child behind. And it works through what one needs to do. So, of course, you all know about the mass registration that's taking place in order for us to get the subsidy to the eligible centers, and we know that that is moving, but maybe not at the pace that we would like it to move, and we're learning through that process, and we're fixing it as we go along. It's like a moving train, because actually what's happened in ECD, it's now become a moving train, right? And that train is starting to move quite fast. We've got to move it faster, but it's the right moment now. It wouldn't have been the right moment maybe 5 years ago to have this collaboration and this collective action. And the key thing, I think, is that the blueprint is one of the best vehicles that we may have at our disposal, because it is bringing together, everybody is leading different actions. They don't necessarily, not in government, but they could be, like Grace, who was here from National Treasury, but there are people in civil society, there are community groups, there are others who are part of, you heard Jacques earlier, who are part of leading these actions. And it allows us to connect, it allows us to innovate and share lessons of what's working, what's not working. The main thing, though, is that the blueprint is about scale, and so it was designed for scale, and it's not piloting things unless they can be scaled. So when we learn the lessons, it's like, if I could just completely just say now, what must we continue, because it is working in the sector already. So continue that, it's working, do more of it. What must we stop, because it can't be scaled? It's too expensive and too inefficient. Those are questions we have to actually confront. What must we stop? And what must we start doing? What are the new things that we must start doing if we want to reach scale to get this quality access? If we want to make sure that in every village, every town, every city, we are not leaving children behind. So I'll just stop there. I don't say too much. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a good segue to Ma'am Helen as well, to say this is a fast-moving train. And many in this room will talk about the challenges they face, especially at the municipal level with regards to registration of practitioners. But can you talk about how the city of Johannesburg, you talked about, when the function shift happened and all of this is happening, and, now you're doing compliance and you are looking at, are you complying? And sometimes that's really at odds with enabling practitioners and seeing that it has to be a journey that's also enabled, and that local government and the city of Johannesburg has a role to play in that. Can you talk about a little bit about where you are seeing partnerships opening up this conversation and what the city of Johannesburg has been doing in response?
Thank you. When I said I was requested to move from the region to the central office, that was when the city of Johannesburg entered into a partnership to actually look at the barriers that were there blocking ECD centers from fully complying with all the city of Johannesburg processes. And what we found then was 80% of ECDs within the whole city of Johannesburg were non-compliant. only 20% at the time. And this called for an audit to look at exactly what are those areas that are the reasons behind this huge non-compliance of ECDs. And from the audit, we found out that most ECD centers did not have information in terms of where to go, how to navigate the whole process. Or to some who have already tried, the compliance process, it was cumbersome, expensive, confusing, and hence the city felt there is a department that needs to be in the middle, pulling both ECDs from one angle and working with departments on the other angle. So hence I came and was more like a convener in this whole process to ensure that those ECDs, especially in previously disadvantaged communities, are enabled through this process. Because now we had done an audit and we knew what was happening, where the barriers were, and what is it that we needed to do. So department has to sit down, come up with concessions to say there is a law, or there are bylaws, or there's legislation, which was one of the biggest barriers, and it still is to a certain extent. How then do you, without necessarily breaking the law, but enable the system to ensure that ECD centers in the poorest areas where they are operating from are able to also reach the level of compliance? Thank you.
Thank you. So that takes me to you, Mampumi, and to say, one of the conversations we had when we first met, and we were touring Kokotela and seeing the sites in the informal settlement of Kokotela, and you really saw, and I think were moved by the quality that was being delivered in those informal settlements. And the conversation we had was, what do we do? Because not every region or every metro or municipality in Gauteng has made those concessions that COJ has spoken about. And there are still quite a lot of challenges. How do you leverage your own agency to work with the different districts and to advocate for children so that practitioners can register and that subsidies can flow when we know that one of the biggest barriers remains the informality where these practitioners work? You also spoke about, that you are used to schools, and schools are formalized structures. They're easy to manage because we can point, and there are norms and standards and all of those things, where ECD and the diversity of delivery modalities, it's not always the case. So tell us about, as an ECD director, how did you navigate this, and how did you also leverage your own agency and brought in others to help navigate this, including your district directors?
Thank you very much. I think I want to start off by saying, the day we have both a provincial government and local government cooperating, seamlessly with well-coordinated activities, program of action, that will definitely be a game changer for ECD. And so because nationally the political will is already there, it's documented, it's there. We know from SONA it's there. And when you come to provincial level, it's there. You come to local government level, it changes faces. When the local government changes, and then you have to start afresh again. So I think the day we have these, this will embedded and really taken into the local government policies and their legislative architecture, it will be a game changer. But having said that, going to Kokotela with you on that time was such an eye-opener for me, because then it actually opened my eyes into saying, if I collaborate with the city, we collaborate with NGOs, collaborate with people in Kokotela, my homies, you know, and we can, it was a test case for me, and that things can change. We can start, you know, changing lives, then livelihoods. Lives of children, livelihoods of those women who are coming together there. Because that concept in an informal settlement was for me something out of this world. Because remember, in our State of the Province address, already the Premier has pronounced that we have to start changing lives of people in townships, informal settlements, and hostels. And we didn't know where to start with these informal settlements. But when we found that, you know, NGOs are already in that space, city is already, you know, thinking about that space to say what concessions can we make for the space. And we come in as government, provincial government, who has to lead. And our job was made easier to say, now, we just need to coordinate. We just need to make sure that government's program of action or government's vision, which is well articulated in the Banapili blueprint, in the ECD strategy, that we make sure that everybody else that comes in, that we bring in, we just make sure that we are well coordinated, we can take this concept and also, you know, use it in other areas that are like this. And it meant even with the district, because district people were like, Kokotela, no. And when they started seeing and started realizing that these things are doable, and we are all now excited. And we always make an example with this, and we are able to take this concept to other districts as well. And it became such an issue that we even took it to the opening of Parliament, because it was such a beautiful way of bringing together all this, the role players within the ECT space, and collaboratively being able to come up with something. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So Hosi, we've heard from a government perspective and some of the challenges that, you know, when leadership changes, when the political will, when the president came into power, he said the rallying call was Tumamina, which is really how do we leverage the agency of everyone, and how does everyone step up and say, I'm ready. And we've seen in our multiple engagements how the traditional leaders in Limpopo have really said, these are our children. Tell us a little bit about what that means for you in terms of creating opportunities for all children, especially in the most excluded places where sometimes government services find it difficult to get there because, you know, most systems are built for formal, you know, or urban areas. And sometimes translating that into rural areas and rural contexts is sometimes difficult. But as traditional leaders, part of your mandate is how do we move our people forward? So from that perspective, tell us about how you are using your own agency and some of the things you are doing in Limpopo to really put the children at the center and to rally other stakeholders to say, what are you doing for the children in Limpopo?
Yeah, thank you to that. Let me not agree with the last speaker on the issue of saying there's a political will starting from the president. It's only the president who is advocating the issue of ECDs. But the other ministers and MECs are not interested in what is happening on the ground. I want to be very honest by saying we are sitting here today as traditional leaders. We are the most victim out of all the people in areas where we are residing. Seeing these kids not attending ECD centers. We witness them almost every day. You have a counselor sitting there, but they never done anything to make sure that they call maybe a general meeting in a community or in a ward to address issues that affect children in the area where they are living. So I don't see any political will coming from them. Number two, on the issue of political will. It's unfortunate, I don't know whether we have them here in this hall. Those are the university students that are getting NEFSA's money. Every year it's budgeted so much billions to the NEFSA students so that they can complete their degrees. You go to the lower level, like your primary and the high school, they are food nutrition, where department is spending a lot of billion making sure that people that can able to get things for themselves, they feed them. But you go to the creches, there's nothing. That is a reality that we are facing every day. There's nothing. So as traditional leaders, we are faced with so many challenges in our areas. Hence, we decided to say, no, we cannot witness this and may be left out, while at the end of the day, when these kids grow up, there will be a problem back to the communities. So we have to make sure that we play our role. What role are we playing? Number one is to make sure that in our areas of jurisdiction, we involve all stakeholders, starting from the church and then starting from all other organizations that are there to be part in raising the kids that we're talking about. From there, we have to move to government. We're sitting here today, we have the Department of Education. I don't know whether the government was clear or had an idea what needed to be done after moving kids from social development to Department of Education. When they move kids from social development, they move them from that department to this department with social workers, which I believe that they are here. They were not even prepared how to grow, to raise a kid from the level of social development to the Department of Education. Now, those that have been sitting in that department for years, they are sitting with problems that have been handed over by government from that social development. Number one, before they can move them, they were supposed to come up with a strategy on how are we going to train these people so that when we move them, they are prepared. We are sitting here with social workers. I have to say this because this is what we are witnessing almost every day. They struggle to deal with a kid as a crash. They have no idea. They still need to adapt. And then that adaptation might take maybe 5 to 6 years. And then that child who is at the crash now will be already at school. So there was supposed to be something to be done by the department, but it's not late yet. Department of Education need to come up with some measures on how are they going to train this. Spend more money on training those that are coming from social development to the Department of Education, because the mandate of two departments are very different. What we have done in the province of Limpopo as a traditional leaders, when I first heard of SmartStart, I invited the whole community and allowed them a space to present what SmartStart does for kids. And then the community had a buy-in for the things that they were bringing. From there, I couldn't sit with that alone. I had to inform the other colleagues within the level where I'm operating so that I can inform them. They know about SmartStart. And then from there, I said, what is it that we need to do? Because this is the problem that is affecting almost every traditional leader. And then we had to approach Constellations, which is the Congress of Traditional Leaders in South Africa, to say, here it's SmartStart. They are coming to deal with the problems that we are facing almost every day as traditional leaders. Why can't we allow them a space to come and operate so that they can help us deal with some of the problems that when these kids grow up, they don't have those problems. And then we did that. On top of that, we had to have an engagement with the House of Traditional Leaders in the province. Remember, all traditional leaders are under COGTA and House of Traditional Leaders. Sitting here in Limpopo, all traditional leaders represented by the House, they are going to sign a memorandum of understanding with SmartStart. Not only that, most of you here during holidays, you visit Kruger National Park. How many kids are you seeing there where their parents are working in Kruger National Park? There are no centers. Come September, we'll give the national office a date where Sun Parks will be signing a partnership with SmartStart. And then these are the kind of work that we are doing. In Gauteng, Department of Education.
1 minute,
here
pause.
in conclusion, but I'm just trying to show the work that we are doing. For the first time in history, from 1994, come first week of September, the Department of Education in Limpopo will be having its first ECD Indaba, which it never happened before. So this is through the engagement that we have been doing, and then make sure that we bring all stakeholders. We are still waiting for the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, because they are responsible for all the produce of fruit and vegetables. We want to see them making sure that each and every center have a backyard garden where all these centers will just go and harvest and do this stuff. That's what we are doing in Limpopo. Thank you.
You are really speaking exactly to our strategy about everyone as agency, and it's important that we leverage that. So Tracy, over to you. And I think that where you sit, you also see the opportunities that are there in the system and what needs to be unlocked, and some of the things that everyone on this panel has spoken about, you see firsthand. From your perspective, what makes these partnerships really work?
So I'm going to partly answer that question because one of the things this morning that excited me was the nutrition panel. And I want to position that almost in response. And we had 4 major players sitting on this podium. But what I saw was they weren't working together. And so across various aspects of our ecosystem, key role players are not working together. So we have strong systems individually, but a fragmented, coordinated system holistically. And so if one were to develop a system for nutrition, for instance, as a fundamental building element for the child, if our key players work together in terms of what they're strong at, because now you have our key role players, but then you also have all your RTOs. We're all delivering nutrition at the same time. We have our own logistics. We have our own warehousing. We have our own distribution. And so we're not learning from each other. We're not learning how to be more efficient, how to drive down the cost of nutrition. We're also not looking at the government spend and how that can be more effective, because we distribute that to ECD centers. And so how can we enable that and make a better system? So what exists is the capacity. The capacity already exists within our system. And the ability exists. We just need to put it all together to connect the dots. And Dr. Harrison spoke about what if we just made it simpler and we only had bronze as the enabling factor and not silver. And what's interesting is that we actually have a stipend in the Western Cape for bronze. And we have, but what we've had to do is we had to develop our own system for distribution, again, another system. So everybody's working in silos. We're not learning from each other. We're not working together to collaborate. And I think that if we were to work together very quickly, we can solve the nutrition problem, because the assets are there, the systems are there, the people are there, the capacity is there. And we can do that at every level of the system. And we need to build aspects of the system in terms of we are strong. And this is where trust comes in. Because if we have our nutrition people working on nutrition, we have our finance people working on finance, I can contribute on each, but I'm not owning it. I can't own every aspect of the system, but I can own one or two components. So when we partner, come together where we're strong, bring our collective knowledge, because a lot of us are sitting with data, but we're not building knowledge systems and using what we already know. We have a collective history. I was 50 years old. Many of you are as old, and we've learned so much. So I think the solutions are right in front of us, but we're not talking to each other. So partnerships are so fundamental, and opening up the spaces for that to happen. And I think that we're moving forward. We are ready. The system is ready. It's just to get together and make it happen. Thank you.
So they keep raising the boards over there, and I keep seeing time up, time up. I think that's a good place. I'll give each one a quick minute. In closing, what is your commitment to make partnerships and collaboration really meaningful? And as you think about next Monday morning, what are some of the things that come to mind? What, from your perspective, will make partnerships better? And why, or maybe if you want to say, where are you seeing in the theme of constellation, bright sparks, where there is hope and where we can start to collectively build on? So I'll start with Helen. We'll go to your left, and then we'll come back to Tracy and Mampumi.
You said how many minutes?
A quick minute.
It's so short, but what I can say is the project to enable access of ECD centers into the compliance value chain was actually opened by Hollard Foundation. I must mention this. And the 5-year program that, or contract that they signed with the city of Joburg, it actually had a good turnaround in terms of increasing the number of ECD centers that were non-compliant with land use. Now we are headed towards 2,000, more than 2,000 are compliant with land use. And more, compliance is beginning to open up. I don't believe if it was not because of this partnership, we'd be where we are. So partnership, very, very important.
Partnership is very important in making everything that we think is not possible to become possible. Yes. We just need to tolerate each other and not fight for the space that we're operating in, and then not have like these mushrooming NGOs coming in a very small space. If you know you have an NGO which embraces the work that is being done by another NGO, just come together and see if maybe then you cannot work together. So that will be very much important. They say one star cannot shine brighter. It's only one star that can shine brighter, which is the sun. And when the sun is lighting brighter the way we are seeing it, it's because it's very close. If you are a star hiding somewhere, we won't see you lighting. So come closer to the sun so that we can have a big light to bright everyone. So working together like a spider to create a spider web, and then it will work us better. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way of putting it. I just want to say that there is so much abundance, commitment, passion in the country to put children first. And we need to harness all of that and go with the term that says if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, you walk together. But I can commit that government is continuously ensuring that systems are strengthened so that they are transparent, they are responsive, they are integrated from national, provincial to local. We are bringing all those other ministers and MECs, etc., together so that we can get them to be part of this journey.
also, okay?
So, yeah, there's quite a lot, but I like what Idzani said this morning about letting go. Letting go of your IP, your branding, your ego. And the question that we've asked ourselves is, are we building an ecosystem or an ecosystem? And so what is fundamental in that is that we've got to be willing to lose credit if it actually means we're solving the problem. And so it is, the question we ask is, am I looking to protect a patch or to solve a problem? Am I engineering my own sustainability or my own redundancy? And so these are fundamental questions we have to ask, and the why, the purpose that we do it is fundamental to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The ECD ecosystem is unique and it has endless opportunities. Every star in that ecosystem has a different set of skills, knowledge, information. You can see them here. There's blue stars, yellow stars, pink stars, green stars. And if you bring all of them together, what a beautiful collection, constellations of stars. So that is what, as government, we want to ensure that that happens, that seamless coordination. We are not able to do it alone. He has already mentioned, our social workers will not be able to do that. But these NGOs, we found them in the sector. They are already doing well in closing access gaps. They already have gone far in closing early learning gaps. And that is what we're going to be capitalizing on and ensuring that we all work together and ensure that then every child is part of that. No child is left behind. Thank you.
With that, there is nothing more to add. The village has spoken and the village is ready. So thank you so much for all of you for your participation. There was a lot more we could talk about, but time ran away from us. So thank you so much for your participation.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another massive round of applause to our fantastic panelists. Honestly, what a riveting conversation on partnerships, right? I mean, really, it just reminds us that we actually all need to work together and that really partnerships can help us unlock and help us deal with the friction when sometimes it gets in the way. I think I have to say that SmartStart is incredibly lucky to have Hoshi Mugukula as their ambassador in Limpopo, right? Let's give him a massive round of applause. And I think to corroborate what he said, that actually highlights the importance and the need for partnerships, just as the insight that he shared on what they have achieved, which is incredible. With that note, we have 2 more sessions to go, so we're almost done. And up next, I would love to start and turn the spotlight inward, right? So we've spent the day asking, what does the ecosystem need from one another? And actually, the reason why we'd asked all of you to scan their Menti and to participate and also to share a little bit about the Q&A box is now to unpack some of the questions that were asked in the Menti box. So we're now putting SmartStart Network into the hot seat, and this is an opportunity for the ecosystem to ask questions directly and for the SmartStart Network or even a voice in the ecosystem to answer. So I would like to please call up Dadisai from SmartStart, and she will help facilitate the top 5 rated questions which were received and asked on Menti. Amazing, thank you. And then I would like to call up, joining her is Mary from Kululega. We've got Tafara from Siakolwa, Mam Ruby from TREE, Lazola and Kayan from SmartStart. And how this will work, the questions are behind me? Yes. So thank you all for participating and for putting out your questions. How it will work is that Isai will facilitate the session. And, it will be an opportunity for the SmartStart Network to respond. If you in the ecosystem would like to respond to that particular question, please feel free to do so. Just lift up your hand and we will bring a roaming mic to you. Thank you so much. And panelists, over to you.
So I guess the first question that is before us, I thought Tracy was coming. Okay. How do we ensure that program interventions and efforts are based on an understanding of what actually works rather than an assumption? So, because we are on the graveyard, we're going to sip quickly in answering that. And if we feel we've covered it, we'll move on to the next one. Is that okay? So I might not get all of you to respond to the same question. Okay, I'll start with you, Lazola.
This thing is on. Good afternoon, everybody. So how do we ensure our collective efforts and understanding of what actually work is true in the communities? I think the best way to do that is to really be collaborative around sharing what we already know. Because as people said, we already have a lot of assets, we already have a lot of knowledge, innovations, technology, data, all the things that were shared today, and a lot of different stakeholders that care about children that have something to contribute. So finding a way to really meaningfully share that body of knowledge together so that we don't repeat the things that we've already done. We don't try to do what other stakeholders are already doing. As I normally say to my team, if Ozzy, who was here from SA Harvest's day job is to solve for nutrition, I don't think we need somebody in SmartStart to solve for nutrition. So that's the same sentiment, is that can we really try to leverage off our collective strengths so that we can cover our collective weaknesses. I think that's how we'd move from assumptions to what actually works, and then obviously listening to the communities more actively. Thank you.
Mary, I'll also give you an opportunity, as you've been doing quite some deep listening around this.
So for me, it actually comes back down to partnerships. A lot has been spoken about what we have in terms of strengths, capacity, and capabilities in individual organizations that are on the ground. And when we truly understand our beneficiaries and we understand the complexities of the communities that we work in, we can leverage joint strengths. So we have to make it contextually as well as culturally aligned to what the need of our young children are. So I think that big emphasis on listening and making sure that we are learning in a practical manner, because often it's nice to have a nice big idea, but when it hits the ground and you really are trying to reach those children that are in the most hard to reach areas, it's important that we bring it down to something that can be really practical and implemented and delivers quality at the center for those young children.
We're going to move to the next question that was voted for today. How will we get society or citizens to see the value in childcare work? Recognition stems from value. Kayan, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to Mamrubi.
So I think this is maybe the hardest question. So I think my view, at least, is that caregivers are already deeply invested in their children, that this is not something which people need to be told is important, but that people believe is important. I think where the disconnect sometimes comes is that caregivers don't necessarily understand the detail of how much brain development is taking place and how best to nurture young children. But I think, honestly, my understanding of communication is that it starts with listening, that we don't start by broadcasting a message, we start by listening to what people are telling us. And then from what we hear, we will better be able to connect our message with our audience. But I already believe that most caregivers in South Africa are deeply invested in the well-being of their children, and all we need to do is to help connect the dots.
Thank you, Karen. Ma'am Ruby, you sort of touched on this earlier when we talked about the resourcing and the human resources planning. What are your thoughts on this one?
The first point, good afternoon, everyone. The first point that comes to mind is to ask a question that says, whose children are they that you are taking care of? Do you understand that these children are coming from families, and these families are a village that as much as they need your support as the child care, but they also bring something into the space. So we've got a serious issue that we need to work on as ECD workforce, that of thinking that we're the know-all, and we forget that these are children that belongs to the community, and we are here because there are children in this community. And how do we then bring in the community? Not only remember that this child is born because you want school fees, because the child did not bring food at the early learning program. So if we can begin to co-share the idea of early childhood development with the owners of the ECD, because the owners of the ECD, more than us, who have set up that ECD center or that early learning program under the tree, but the owners of the early learning programs first are the communities, are the parents, are the leaders of the community. So how do we then journey with them in making them understand, in fact, moving from what they need more than what I need as a caregiver or a child care worker? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's covered, but I think we forget sometimes that we generally not the orchestrators of what's happening in community. Generally, there's already women that are working in this space without us. So there's an understanding and an appreciation of early learning that already exists. So it's important to recognize that, number one. But also, how do we engage better as a sector? Sometimes we can assume we know certain things. Sometimes we can think our own solutions are better than what's already in practice. So it's important for us to, as practitioners, as the sector, to engage better so that we can fully understand what's already happening in these communities and how we can add more value to that as well.
Thank you. And I think that there was also some significant work that many in this room worked on in I think it was last year when when South Africa hosted the G20, to really put care work at the center and say, how do we value care work and as a real contributor to the economy? So I think that there are many strengths that we can pull together, and some of the work and the actions that came out of that are also quite important for that conversation. The next question was, what are the practical steps that SmartStart will take to move from a closed to an open network? What will change? I'm looking at you, Lazola.
That is a very, very easy and also very difficult question to answer. So I'm going to attempt answering it by using a story. So when I moved from Cape Town back to Johannesburg, I stayed in a community of old retired people, and there's a security company called Beagle Watch that does an amazing job to secure the area and do all of this patrolling. So one of my kids, my oldest son who's 5, noticed that the domestic workers in the community met every Tuesday in the park with the Beagle Watch security. So he wanted to understand what was happening there, and how they explained it was that Big Watch comes into the community every 30 minutes. A domestic worker is there every minute. So if they are part of the security apparatus and they check just their own yard that they work in once in a while and have a WhatsApp group where they report, then security in that space is covered. So a question that came that I couldn't answer was, does that mean that now the domestic workers are securities as well and they also work for Big Watch? I wanted to say in a sense yes, but I knew there would be more questions that I can't answer. So I said, to keep everybody safe, everybody has to contribute. So from domestic workers to the security guard to everybody who is in the community, everybody contributes to the safety of that same community. It's basically the same here. If our combined goal is to make sure that there's universal access to quality early learning for all children of South Africa, then one of the things we need to do is to say that everybody can be a layer of support towards that goal. And it doesn't come with a title, it doesn't come with an identity, it comes with your own agency and seeing yourselves and what you can contribute. So moving from a closed network to an open network, one of the things that have already started changing, for example, was a partnership that I've never heard of before. I didn't even know there was a thing called full rescuing by SA Harvest until we met SA Harvest and learned about that. So that's something that is not an MOU, is not an SLA, is not a closed partnership. SA Harvest works with any and everybody. And opening that door means it's open for the entire ecosystem, not just for SmartStart practitioners, it's open for all ECD practitioners. And this is one of the lessons that we are learning, alongside with many other things, like forming part of raising your hand to be part of blueprint action orchestration, the difficult of taking off your role as a head and putting on a head for South Africa's ECD is one of the things that we have to learn about. How do we then open up whatever it is that we can contribute, whether that's leadership, a little expertise here and there, and what we can gather from the rest of the ecosystem to keep the dream of ECD alive. So that's what I would say practically. Thank you, Dennis.
We've got 3 more questions to go. So maybe I'll say hold it. If we have time and they allow us at the end, I'll ask you to add. The next question is that this screen is slower than that one, so pardon me. The Thrive by 5 found that more training doesn't necessarily seem connected to better, higher quality ECD practice. How should training be used in light of this? And I think we started to dip into this already. I'll start with you, Mam Ruby, on this one. And I see May Puleng is also in the audience, and I think that there's something that you can contribute to this conversation as well. So I'll also invite you to share some reflections on this question.
That is, am I audible? Can I start by a small addition to what Lazaro was saying and remind him that even though there are no rules and names or surnames in the issue of open collaboration, but there are values, there is culture, that needs to be understood, that needs to be aligned in order for partners to work together. Coming to this one, this comes to what I am aligned to again. That says a qualification does not equate to a quality program. But what is most important is to make sure that we've got programs that are packaged, in a way that are focusing on outcomes, children's outcomes or learners' outcomes, more than focusing on what the teacher needs to benefit in terms of him or her having a certificate that will give him or her money. But how do we package programs that are focusing on outcomes for the child at the end of the day? And that, unfortunately, is not the deeper focus of even the universities, if I may, to focus on them. And it comes back to us as RTOs. The argument, again, is that the trainer that is responsible to train this teacher, where was she trained before she became a trainer for the trainers? That's a very critical, and I know it's a sensitive, and not everybody likes to hear it, but it's a reality. So there is no way that we can get the outcomes for the learner if we do not have proper, well-developed, well-supported, well-monitored, well-mentored ECD practitioners, stroke ECD workforce. Thank you.
Mapuleng, I think I'll bring the mic to you. And this conversation was central to the NECTA conference last year. And I know you had some good things to say about this. What do you have to say to this question?
Honestly, can you repeat the question?
Thrive by 5 found that more training doesn't necessarily seem connected to better, higher quality ECD practice. How should we then use training in light of this?
Definitely. Having been trained and qualified doesn't actually talk to the quality of the work that will be done. I think Mama Ruby took some of my response to say the kind of training that we're offering will have to be combined with an intense support and growing together. We're not taking this fast of touch-based training and just assume that people can go do the proper work. That is one. But one other thing that I've learned now recently is to say intervention that is based without any basis to say what was there before an intervention is always naked. So if we would also, going forward, consider to find out what is on the ground before the intervention, so that by the time we measure impact, we know exactly what our intention should be, and that could actually drive us to achieving the quality we wanted. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are fast running out of time. And so with that, we'll go to our last question. How do we address the corruption of social workers? They decide who gets registered, who gets the subsidy, and who is nominated for grant access. Wow, that's a loaded one. I think we don't want to assume that all social workers are but I think there is a concern in this question that perhaps is worth talking about, and I don't know who would like to answer this one in a quick minute.
Very difficult. But for me, is creating ownership. I like the model Yakosi and where they are. ECD is for the community, and everyone knows and owns and understands what's happening. So if it's managed at that level, it's not just left to the social worker. They understand that there's a whole ecosystem that they're involved with that understands and knows what's happening. And there is a layer of accountability beyond themselves. So how do we create those layers of accountability beyond just the social worker so that they're able to account not with the people that they're working with and the stakeholders around them? I think that's one of the ways in which we can make sure that the corruption is curbed.
Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for. But let's keep the engagement, and we'll find ways in which we can continue to have this conversation offline and online. But thank you for your engagement.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them another massive round of applause. Thank you so much to Daddy Sai for facilitating and for the network representatives for engaging so openly. I think a strong ecosystem doesn't only need collaboration, but also needs opportunities for enough trust to ask honest questions and enough openness to engage with the answers. So thank you. And of course, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for being so patient with us. We are almost at the end. This is the very last final session before we head out for some mimosas, wine, and refreshments, which I'm super excited for. Yes, woo! That's the excitement we need. Bring mimosa on. This is the last session, I promise, and we've kept it short. So to close off our day, we're bringing together two perspectives that may not immediately seem like obvious partners, but they do have a great deal to say to one another. Facilitating this conversation, I'd like to call up Mariki Engelbrecht, who is the Head of Societal Communications and Acting Chief for Partnerships and Policy at SmartStart. Joining her, I would like to call up Mary Metcalf, Commissioner Education at the National Planning Commission, and Yolanda Jones, who is the Program Director for Ladles of Love. Together, they're bringing education and the informal economy into the conversation in a very creative way. This is the final session. Let's give them a lot of love, a massive round of applause, lots of energy to close us off. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's so great to see you. And thank you for letting me jump into your conversation, Mary and Yolanda. It's amazing. I think, we just give Mary a moment to get her things together and get on stage. Great. And note that Mary's wearing a couple of hats today. Commissioner's not that. Okay. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for making time. This is our final fireside chat, and it really goes to the heart of the conflict between informal entrepreneurship, building a business, informality, and trying to bring those businesses into the formal government framework. It's something that I think many people struggle with every day. So to start us off with, Yolanda, maybe give us just a little bit of an idea of what you do at Ladles of Love. I think most people know of Ladles of Love, but some of the entrepreneurial and the deep work that you do in informal sector, just to set us off with what are the big challenges? What are the experiences that you notice on the ground as you support these practitioners?
All right. Thanks for the opportunity. I just want to say, for all of you who are going to listen to this session, I've organized personal and extra glass of wine for you. So thank you for bearing with us. So my name is Yolanda Jones. As mentioned, I'm the Programs Director at Ladles of Love. And Ladles of Love is a food relief organization. But more than that, we are also food security. We provide food for ECDs free of charge. They collect from our warehouse. We work with chefs. We put a menu together. We teach the cooks. We teach the practitioners. We teach the principals how to prepare the menu. Besides that, because in South Africa we have such a huge problem of malnutrition, we also teach the practitioners how to identify signs of malnutrition, how to change the plate from a child who's overweight to a child who's stunted, to a child who's underweight, because no two plates is equal, right? So we also go out and we monitor the kids, we do the anthropometric assessment, we track the growth, we track their height, we track whether they are developing as they should, whether they are reaching their milestones as we should. So every quarter we have practitioners, principals, and the cooks who are putting the food on the plate. We have them in workshops every quarter to make sure that they are fully equipped to be able to implement the program. Thank you. Extra glass for you.
And And in terms of training and the work that you do with the women, I mean, it's food is a very big part of it, but there's also helping to some extent to support sustainability.
Yes. So the food that we give is free of charge. And one of the things that we track, because you used to spend money on buying food, what are you now doing with the money? Are you increasing the salary for your staff? Are you upgrading your center? Are you putting better infrastructure in place? Are you making sure that there are educational resources for the kids? How are you budgeting to make sure that you are upping the level? Because a lot of the centers are struggling with registration, struggling to be compliant because they don't have the money. Now, the 14,000 Rand that some of our bigger centers are spending a month on food, where is that money being redirected? And so now we train them on how to budget, how to finance properly. We work with Grow ECD. We refer them to Alru, who has come into our workshops to train them to make sure that they are registered. So we are not just giving you food. We are not just giving you a handout. It's a hand up. So there's no more excuse for people to struggle because of financial constraints. We are making sure that we are equipping you with business acumen, making sure that your center can grow holistically. Because one of the things that I've recognized that our ECDs, long answer, principals are not getting salaries. Ek kan dit nie glo nie. How are you a business owner, but your family is struggling? Like everyone else's children has ice creams except your children. They can't have an ice cream because you don't have the money. If you are a business owner, your pocket's got to reflect that. And so if you are not yet paying yourself, maybe it's because you haven't yet put value on the service that you are offering the communities. I always find principals saying, oh, shame, the people in my community cannot afford it. But die hare is gedoen. Do you understand Afrikaans? The nails are did. The lashes are on point. It's what we put our priorities on. What is important to you? So we are teaching principals. Value the service that you offer in the community and put a price on it.
Thanks. Thanks for that. I think,
Right.
they know. Mary, I want to come to you now and just look a little bit, because she said the registration word. Let's look at the responsibilities of government and how that sometimes causes this conflict or the tension that we are feeling.
Yeah. I just, first of all, want to say that was fantastic. I think to understand what you are doing in terms of the desperate need for food and to couple it with the kind of capacity building at the same time. It's easy to just dish out soup, but you do much more than that. And I think that is what takes me to your question, which is, what about government? And I am not as active in ECD as everybody else in the room, but I'm a close observer and do what I can to support. What I think is the central tension that frustrates so many people working so hard on the ground is that there is a massive mobilization. And so many women in particular, entrepreneurial women, working in the most poor areas in the country, the most marginalized, I think are benefiting hugely from organizations like SmartStart in terms of helping them with the approach to ECD and supporting. But as Rasheen pointed out in the previous session, government has begun to really move in terms of massive amounts of subsidy, the push for registration, but it comes with frustrations. So government's supplying money for subsidies for the most needy. Provincial departments are busy establishing the capacity, but need more capacity to be able to do all of the work that needs to be done. And I'm looking at Pumi here because she does such great work in Gauteng. But I know that ECD practitioners and NGOs and providers are so frustrated with the slow pace of moving from mass registration, bronze, silver, to when you might finally get a subsidy, and it's a source of enormous tension. So I think that what government has to do, and I'm not in government, I'm talking as an observer, what government has to do, I think, is to do more to ensure that the current blockages to registration are dealt with. A lot of those are at local government level, which is again why the work Rasheen was talking about, and that wonderful woman in the last session in Joburg. Local government is absolutely crucial. But I also understand, and I'm very worried, that if we don't have the right processes in place and we don't have the right controls and we aren't able to account for the money, in fact, it will do more damage to the sector. So we need the systems. We need to say that there's minimum standards. We need to say that if you're getting a subsidy, you do meet the minimum conditions. And I shouldn't say this, maybe I'm just trying to make sure people are awake. One of the things that terrifies me about ECD is the sanitation facilities. If we think about children who've died in pit latrines, it's the small children. We have to be able, as a society, to say we did everything that we could to make sure that where our children go to an ECD center, it meets minimum criteria. That's why bronze, silver, gold is important, but we need more capacity.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I just wanted to add, being on the ground and hearing the frustrations of principals, you understand that there's almost this blanket approach towards compliance, right? But Nobuntu in Langa is in a steel structure in a shack, right? So she has these potties around the corner, and she's not compliant because she's got potties.
But they're safe.
But they're safe. Then the other person is not compliant because she doesn't have enough windows in the, I get it. All of those things are really important. However, I do think that in order for us to move the process forward, whilst the center cannot yet build a brick and mortar structure, what is it that we can facilitate to make sure that we acknowledge the center to be safe? It's not yet looking how we really want it to look, but the center safe for use by the practitioners and by the children, so that they are not always on a back foot because of where they are positioned. It is important that we acknowledge that, I mean, we see these centers struggling day after day. They're taking their money, they're fixing. There was plastic that was catching the rain before. Now there's a ceiling. There's potties in, and there's a curtain that separates the girls from the boys. But 2 square meters, but there's 100 here.
Yeah.
How are we acknowledging the work that is being put in place? And how are we walking with the principals to make sure, okay, so you have to do this. I see them struggling to fill in a form. I see them struggling to understand the language. What is it that we're doing to support them to understand, okay, for you to get to this level, this is what you need to do, and we are walking alongside you to make sure that you can reach that.
Two things. One. Hey,
I know, but you invited me to this conversation. I just want to mention, because we were talking about it now. So the realities of the country, the realities of where most of our communities and people live need to be taken in consideration. Absolutely. And as we work to the solution, to where we want to be, the one thought is the children of today cannot wait. They cannot wait until we're ready with the structures. Yes. They cannot wait for 2-3 years down the line when we're there. And that's the balance that we are trying to find here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's two things that arise from what you've both said. I think the first is that the progression has to be seen as a developmental process. And when we have a society with such high levels of poverty, with so many people living in conditions and working in conditions and trying to do ECD work in conditions that are less ideal, there needs to be, within the growing capacity of government, there has to be the possibility of being more developmental and contextually appropriate in the way that we work with these guidelines. But I also think that it's a massive learning time for everyone. So your stories and the stories of so many people here need to inform the revisions of what silver, bronze, silver, gold mean, and an acceptance that they may mean different thing in different
contexts.
Informal housing, formal housing, availability of piped water, no piped water, all of those variations. So it's so good that you've got at your SmartStart event practitioners, people from government who can engage, and we have to insist that we heard. It's very important.
I just want to add also, lest it looks like I am anti-policy and anti-compliance, I am not. One of the things that we do at Ladles of Love is that we reward centers who put things in place in the absence of government support, in the absence of getting your subsidy. We're having an award ceremony now in August. If you've redirected the money and your staff is earning more, fantastic. We speak to sponsors. We are strong on collaboration. We speak to corporates. Listen, we want you to fund the center 25,000 rand because they have learned how to use their money. A center has put structures in place, not yet supported by government. So in the meantime, while we wait, what is it that you can do with the resources that you have available to you to make sure that at the end of the day, you can stand with your head up high, knowing that you have given the children in your center the absolute best? One of the things that made me realize very quickly that some principals know they're not doing their best is their own grandchildren don't go to their ECD. If you don't want to put your child in your center is not good enough for my child. So level up. Use the facilities or the resources available to you. You've heard about SA Harvest. You've heard about Rise. You've heard about Ladles of Love. By the way, Joburg is onboarding more ECDs. Speak to Carmony. You've heard about organizations who offer support so that they do bring relief, so that even without subsidy or while you are waiting for that process to be completed, today, tomorrow when the 80 children arrive at your center, they come to a cleaner space. They come to a more hygienically safe space. They come to a more child-friendly space. What can you do today in the absence of the things we are waiting for to make sure that your center is excellent?
Excellent. Well done.
And I think the partnerships that we spoke about earlier in the panel just before this, the partnerships on nutrition, partnerships on infrastructure, partnerships on support, there's so much out there, and we are connecting that now. Yeah. Okay, so I've been flashed my first flash to let me know we are closing down. So I want to give you an opportunity to give me your greatest burning wish for ECD, something that we can end off with on a high note, that we can, what do you wish, or what do you see that gives you the motivation or the hope that we are moving in the right direction to bring this informality together with the government structures that are there to support?
Okay, so I'll try. I think what I want to see is the social movement growing, so that we have many more voices across society who all are saying, let's learn from each other, let's optimize the limited resources we have to make sure that every child is safe, is cared for, and is developing in a loving, nurturing environment. Thank you.
I have learned this is the new way to do it. Clocking it. I think what my biggest wish is that, because I'm in the nutrition space, I know you can't tell. It's menopause. Because I'm in the nutrition space, I would really, really love for everyone to understand the importance of proper nutrition. For a child, I heard a statement once that knocked my wind out, my sails. If we don't fix an issue related to malnutrition by the time a child is 5, the problem is permanent. Have you seen in our communities how many people are disabled? How many people have dropped out of school? It's often accounted to laziness. It is not. Someone, when the child was in the early childhood development phase, did not take note of something that should have been addressed there and then. And so many more of our people would be employed, contributing members of society, healthy members of society, if at the ECD level we understand how important proper nutrition is to a child. And I know for my people, the bigger, the better. For a child, the bigger, the worse. Just to share an example, don't flash. At the age of 3, how much is a child supposed to weigh? Do you know? Between 11, 12, 13. In a few of our ECDs in Cape Town, where I'm from, there is a girl, let me refer to this one girl. She is 3 years old. She was 3 turning 4. She weighed 36. She couldn't get up onto the scale, which was this much from the floor, without help. Do you think that she's going to reach her milestones? Is she going to develop as she should? No. Her brain is not developing as she should. Physically, she cannot do what her peers are doing. She's going to be bullied by the time she reaches grade R. So we think it's cute, but it's not cute when a child has to face ridicule in school. So my wish is that everyone would look out for every child. Your child is my child. Practitioners are afraid to tell the parents when the child is struggling because of being underweight or being overweight. The responsibility is ours. I am overweight. I wish someone told me it wasn't cute. Okay, I'm cute. I mean, we cannot deny it. But I wish that someone had taken the time to say, Yolanda, maybe. But for the sake of our children, ladies and gentlemen, let's not take it lightly. If a child is overweight, assist the parent. I love what you are doing, sir. Ladles of Love is coming to Limpopo. We're coming to give your people free food. Carmony, raise the money so that we can do it. But for the sake of our children, let's treat every child as if they are our own. Do our very best as if they are our own.
Very good. That was wonderful, but I'm not a nutrition expert and you are. But we must remember that a child isn't necessarily overweight like that because they eat too much. They're eating the wrong things, hey? Yeah.
Access to the wrong food.
Yeah, you needed to say that, yeah.
Oh, I needed to say that.
Yeah.
It's not that we've got food scarcity in South Africa. It's that we are not giving children access to the proper food. Nutrient deficiencies is huge. So they get a big plate of food and they are full for the next 20 minutes. And then they eat again because they are not getting the right food on their plate.
Like what are those things? Chicken squishy?
Nuggets?
Yeah, not even. When people buy them at the market on the side of the road and they're full of maize and air. Yeah. I mean, some children eat those and there's nothing in them.
Thank you so very much, my beautiful ladies. This nutrition conversation will be continued at the networking session. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to exit that way, please, to get a little gift. And then may I just hijack this? Thank you. We are so very close to the end. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Yolanda. We are at the end of the day, and I am very, very lucky to be the one who says the vote of thanks for today before we break away. And I have a list. I'm going to work through it. So firstly, thank you to everyone in this room who's ensuring that every child has access to quality early learning. Thank you that you are here. Thank you to our government stakeholders and traditional leadership for taking ECD so seriously and for making the time today. Our civil society, ecosystem partners, everyone that is interested in ECD, our investors for scale, the private sector partners and the Friends of ECD, and also our network partners and our field teams that traveled from across the country to be here today. Thank you. And then something like this doesn't just happen overnight. There's big groups to thank. And firstly, I want to thank the facilitators and the panelists from yesterday, day one for the network. You guys were spectacular. Thank you so much. Thank you also for our moderators and panelists for today. I think everyone was blown away by the quality of the people on the stage. We are in awe of you. Thank you. And then the project Launchpad speakers, it was so fun to see you pitch, and I'm impressed, Mum Ruby. Thank you so much for taking the time and being brave, standing up here. I think next year we need to make that a double session because there were way too many people that wanted to participate. And then for the event support team, from registration, ushering guests, handing out gifts, setting up venues, the timekeepers, the presentation clickers, the Menti managers, the live stream steerers, and everyone who played a part today on the event side, thank you very, very much. And then also the legendary Constellations of Change task team, under the very capable leadership of Tato. And then, last but not least, our very beautiful MC for the day. Ethel, thank you. You were amazing. And that is all the thanks. If I didn't say thank you, I will say thank you to you while we have a mimosa. Thank you.
Oh, Mariki, you're just fabulous. Let's give another massive round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day. I know, it's done, just like that. Truly, what a day. We began with the question about what is universal access for young children and what that could look like. And we've obviously discovered that there really isn't a single answer, right? Is there? Access connects to nutrition. Nutrition connects to quality. Quality connects to the workforce. The workforce connects to financing. Financing connects to evidence. Evidence needs to become action. And action depends on partnership. That's the constellation. The individual points matter, but the power comes from how they seeing how they connect and work together. So, in closing, here's your final challenge, because of course we have to leave with a challenge over on the million and other one to-do list that we have. Please don't leave tonight just with business cards and contact details and notes, but leave with just one conversation you really deeply and genuinely wish to continue. One idea you can take back, one person you can collaborate with, and one action, just one action that you can take. Because universal quality access will not be achieved by a single person or even a single organization working alone. It will take everyone in the ecosystem and absolutely every single person that has sat in this room today, taking agency, collaborating, and sharing what they know. To echo Mariki, thank you to our speakers, our moderators, our panelists, our organizers, the production team, and most importantly, thank you to you for everyone doing the great work for South Africa's youngest children. As you head out, you will get drinks, vouchers, as you exit at the doors, and there'll be food and snacks, I think in the room next door to us, in the foyer. Remember, you are the Constellations to Change. My name is Ethel Makoba, and it has been my deepest honor to MC this event today. Have a great evening, everybody. Let's enjoy some networking.
Dilizwe, ungomelo, sichisa konke esandlaleni.